Welcome to the Creative Brew, helping you keep your creative juices brewing. We're giving out chunks of insight, motivation, and practicality for your creative journey. If you're a creator, athlete, or entrepreneur, luck can only get you so far. Having the right skill sets are critical in your success. All Skill No Luck makes handcrafted, custom-designed flannel wear, made in the United States and based here right in Oceanside, California. They pride themselves on quality, creativity, and attitude. The perfect brand for the Creative Brew. Use promo code CreativeBrew10 and get 10% off and free shipping within the United States. You can check them out at allskillnoluck.com. My next partner is Elevate Coffee Trading, and if you appreciate specialty coffee, enjoy outdoor adventure, and love helping elevate the lives of children around the world, then you're going to love Elevate Coffee Trading. Their mission is to extract hope through love, coffee, and adventures. There's free shipping in the United States, and every bag of coffee helps sponsor health and education for children in coffee-producing countries and in areas of need in the United States. You can use promo code Elevate21 on your next order, and you can follow their journey on social media at Elevate Coffee Trading. Or you can visit online at elevatecoffeetrading.com, and let's start extracting hope together. And this show is brought to you by Tennessee Grappling Apparel, based out of the Knoxville area. Lifestyle wear for the modern wrestler or grappler. Use the promo code CB10 on your next purchase at TennesseeGrapplingApparel.com. Welcome to a new episode of the Creative Brew, giving you insights on your creative journey. Today, we have Luke Bricker, a great friend of mine, someone that I've met over the past couple of years. And I really feel like, along your life, there's always people that you instantly find a connection with, that you resonate with, not only physically, but from a spiritual standpoint. And finally being able to bring on Luke and talk about, just various topics and subjects. And I'm gonna let him sort of share his story, share his origin story, and then we'll get the episode going.
Cool, man. Thank you so much for having me on. So fun, like you said, man. It's been a long time in the making. We met each other through some creative sort of stuff. I was working on a co-working project, and you dropped in to check that out. So that's fun for the origin story of how we know each other. So I know you because of your creative work. You needed a space to do it, So it was cool. So origin story. How far back? Like what parts? I feel like I have like a lot of different things. I could approach it from a lot of different angles. I'm guessing more the creative journey.
Sure. I mean, whatever. Like I said, this is the Creative Brew. Whichever way you want to approach this is completely up to you.
Cool.
If everything is relevant, if it fits, then hey, go ahead and share it.
All right, man. It's been a brew indeed, with a lot of different elements in it. I almost feel like, as cliche as it might sound, but I feel like all of the parts that have come in through life has been just a creative journey. I'll be 33 in a week from today. And it's just been a unique time up to this point. I was born in Miami, Florida. I was born as a pastor's kid. My dad was starting a church in Florida. And then whenever I was young, we moved back to the Midwest, where my parents moved to Florida from, in Indianapolis. And I always felt like, as a kid growing up, no disrespect to my Indiana family and friends, but I live in San Diego now. I live like probably 3 miles from you, where you're recording right now,
Yeah.
But I never really felt like I was at home in Indiana. Like Indiana, and my dad reminds me all the time, like, hey man, Indiana's home. It's time to come home. But I'm like, I never really felt that. I remember some of my earliest memories riding the bus to school, which is foreign to my kids here in California. We don't have a bus system here, but growing up in the Midwest, just feeling this deep inner sense of like, I don't think I'm where I'm supposed to be. And that's really weird for somebody who's 5 or 6 years old to have that sort of like gut heart awareness of like, I don't feel like this is it. I don't feel like I am in the space that is designed for my unfoldment or whatever. And then it took many years. I always daydreamed about moving. Um, but anyways, just about how I got here was because I had this desire to create something new, to do something different, to embark on something that I felt like hadn't been really touched on or happened before. And I didn't really have the clarity of what that was. But in 2016, I decided to take that journey to move to San Diego from Indianapolis. And I felt like over a 3-year period of time of discernment this was the place to move to. I have a wife and 2 kids, and made that leap, sold our house, sold some stuff, gave stuff away, moved across the country, put stuff in storage. I literally rode my motorcycle around looking for a job and a place to live, and just really wanted to do something different in terms of spiritual community. And I feel like in a lot of ways, like that's been my creativity. It's bled into a lot of different things. I'm a musician. I love art, love film, been really tinkering more with taking videography seriously and things of that nature. But my art's really been helping people understand who they really are, and helping people unfold into the fullness of their incarnation. And I think that each and every one of us, we are a creative journey. The brew that's within us has all these different elements and all of these different you know uh, sometimes bitter and sometimes sweet things within us that create the fullness of who we are. And so the creative journey for me has been pulling out the deep true self that's within me, and using those aptitudes and skills and talents to help other people fan into flame who they are. And that is a creative journey in and of itself. So yeah.
Yeah, and I know we've talked a lot, and talking about different different things and different concepts. Even and I know we've talked a lot about, even about Christianity, about the church, about spirituality, and other things. What with what you're doing right now, do you feel, if you were still back in Indiana, do you think you would have the awareness of what you have now, being out here, maybe being in a new environment, being exposed to different things? Or do you think, still being in Indiana, do you think the things um, that you talk about now, or that you read, and meditate on, do you feel like that would have sort of that you would have grown into that eventually? Or do you feel like, maybe you would have been limited being in Indiana?
For me, I know that I was and would be limited in that space. Now everybody is different. Their design is different. Shameless plug for human design. But sometimes when you look at your design and who you are, for me, um, I am where I am. So a lot of people, they say, I am who I am, and no matter where they're at, they're just sort of in the full embodiment, full throttle of who they are. Doesn't really matter what environment they're in. They're just going to be them. Um, I, for better or for worse, I don't have that as much. I really do mirror my environment in a lot of ways. And so my development and my growth has been through me. Whenever I'm calm and centered and grounded and understanding, I make choices of people that I'm around and places that I'm in, and that really helps shape who I am. So in Indiana, I notice even whenever I go back to visit, I begin to mirror those around me very quickly. I adapt and adopt people, around people in places, and that goes to then like values and things. So where I've grown on the spiritual path, or even just the creative path, or my life path, really, it's been because I've made choices to put myself intentionally in places that I know are going to be in line with those values that sometimes become blurry if I'm too close in places. So, and not that people can't flourish in places like the Midwest, or, the South, or some of these places that we don't think of as aesthetic. Some people have that capability to do that. I just don't. I have to be in an aesthetic place. I have to be around things. Even in my house, like I gotta have green around me and colors and all of these things just inspire me. And so even at that, my exposure to people and to thoughts and ideas and philosophies, it was always deep within me to want to expand, but it wasn't the container for me to expand in. And so putting myself here and taking that risk to move out here has put me around people and put me in places that I would have never been to before, and growth that I never would have had, other than being here. So that's for me. For others, could be different. I'm kind of jealous of people that can just, they can just lock themselves in a basement and create something incredible. It's like, I don't know how you do that. I have to be, I don't know. It has to be pulled out of me. You know what I mean? So
yeah, definitely understand what you're talking about. Yeah, you got some people, some creators, they can sit there and just zone out and not talk to anybody and just create something amazing. And then you got some people that they need that environment. They need those people around them and certain things to sort of play, mangle back and forth, and to be able to pull something out of them. So yeah, everybody's different. But really the end result is what anyone would care about. Everybody's processes and techniques are different. I know and like I said, we've got so much that we could probably jump into, so I want to make sure I take this we do this in chunks.
yeah.
So going along your creative journey, and you're on that spiritual path and looking to grow as a person. What would you define? Because this is the day, and like I said, and I know this is always could be a quote unquote argument. Coming from the South, coming from a real Bible Belt conservative background, and then coming out to the West Coast, coming out to California, you see a more open style of spirituality and a lot of different concepts coming from different people. Even for you, what would you define as what would you define spirituality as? And then also too, with Christianity, what do you really define Christianity as?
Yeah. I mean, that has evolved so much for me. I'm a pastor's kid, and I've always had interest in philosophy and theology. And even though as a teen, I didn't express much interest, I actually had to go to a Christian school my senior year of high school because it's the only way that I was going to graduate on time. So I went from I hated school, man. I mean, and like many creatives that are probably here, it's not really the container for a lot of us. We're just different. And the quicker we can admit what those differences are, all of a sudden those faults become features, and we're able to actually really live into it. But I had to go to a Christian school my senior year, and so I went and did you had to do Bible class. And I remember that was one of the first times. It's interesting, growing up as a pastor's kid, I had a much different experience than many kids, and I learned that later. I got invited to speak. I was a youth pastor in Indiana, and I got invited to speak at a pastor's kid event. And all of the stories and all the things that I had to say, like, none of it was connecting, none of it was landing. I felt like I was bombing, and it really wasn't that I couldn't communicate. It was just that my experience was just so different than the typical PK experience. My dad really never, not never, but he didn't have these deep conversations with me about the themes of the Bible or attributes of God. My dad's very much, he's great at what he does, but he's more of a CEO than anything else. He's very entrepreneurial, had businesses before he went into ministry. And has benefited me in other ways of learning. But as far as like um, philosophy and concepts and ideas about spirituality and God, a lot of that was just kind of left to my own understanding, or what I picked up while I was at church. We used to have 2 Saturday night services, and at our largest time, like 4 Sunday services. So it was one of the first real attractional mega churches on the south side of Indianapolis. And so it was just, and what's neat about that, about my dad, is that we were only really allowed to go to like one service. He didn't want us to get burnt out, which is a different experience than a lot of Christians or pastors' kids. They think more church the better. But my dad knew that, if you were oversaturated in that it would turn into burnout. And so, but I was left to just sort of pick up what I learned about God at the church. So at home, it was just sort of basic fundamentals of just, surface level stuff. But I always craved the depths. I always craved something that was deeper, wanted something more meaningful. It had to be more than just the simplicity of just 3 points of how God wants you to, be a better husband or whatever. Not that that's not wrong, but it's just, even I'm a Scorpio, I like the depths. I want something mysterious, the mystique. I want something that is, going to really just pull me into a different transcendent place. And sort of the Christian fundamentals with, smiling guys and thumbs ups on books, like, just didn't do it for me. Um, it, and it's fine. It's good stuff. All of a sudden, Joel Osteen, when you start to read other books, you realize like, oh, like he's just basically regurgitating The Power of Positive Thinking, which is a great book, like it's fine. I wanted something deeper. And so ventured into really conservative Christianity for a while because I wanted something more complex. I sort of figured out the system of what people call Calvinism, and also realized that whatever God that is not a God that I want anything to do with. And began a time of deconstruction in my life. And deconstruction is just sort of taking apart things to see how they work underneath the surface, right? It's a lifting up the hood to understand this car's, whatever, like, let's see what engine is inside of it. So I began to take apart my faith and Christianity, and some pretty, now I see as beautiful ways, but it was pretty traumatic going through that, especially moving to San Diego as a part of that, and supposedly being a church planter while not understanding or not even knowing if I wanted to if I wanted anything to do with Christianity, and I'm supposed to gather people to hear me talk about stuff that I don't even know that I believe in anymore. Like, what? Like, it's crazy. So, but about spirituality, I definitely feel that it's been a process of evolution to understand that God really is not in the business of picking sides and picking teams. That God is expressing God's self in and through all beings, in and through all things, and we are all simply coming to the awareness of the divine that's already within us. And I would argue that Christianity already has a lot of this baked into it. We've just been hijacked by a sort of very sort of, enlightenment, not like Eastern enlightenment, but like the Western enlightenment, very like truth, rationality, facts based, I'm right, you're wrong, apologetics sort of faith. We've kind of been hijacked by that, and at the detriment of really what spirituality is supposed to do for any of us, and that's connect us to the infinite. It's to help us realize the eternal that is actually at present, that eternal means separate from time. And in this present moment, mindfulness here and now is the transcendence of time and space. It's the eternal now. And I think that Jesus is a great teacher in showing us what it looks like to be one with the divine, to be one with the Father, to use some archaic language, but also to be somebody who is mindful of people who aren't at the top of the food chain, who is mindful of the weird crap. I'll censor my word that I'd rather use. The weird crap whenever politics and religion get in bed together. And Jesus helps us show a spiritual element of what it looks like to be embodied and to be one with the divine, but also a very humanitarian element of, we're going to flip tables because you're charging people to pray. So that's sort of my understanding of Christianity. I have a more contemplative approach. I don't know that I would be selective in the places and spaces that I use that term and label, because I don't know how helpful it is. But I definitely think that your own spirituality is a creative journey in and of itself. And the problem is we've had all of the uniqueness and the beauty clipped off to fit into molds. And as we know, in art or anything else, that never creates something beautiful. That only creates carbon copies of the same thing over and over. And then you become factory workers and lines and repeatable machines. And that's why you have churches spread all over the town, but yet right next to each other, playing the same songs, teaching the same messages. And that's not art. And that's not the reflective beauty of the divine. Um, that's just people regurgitating. And we've taken something that was beautiful, clipped off its wings, and just made it to be this very boxed in, uh, easily repeatable method. And that's not creativity to me. So that's my tangent. Hopefully that answers your question.
I can I can always count on Luke to give me a very, very complex. I wouldn't say complex, but it very deep. It's very, and there's a lot of things that you can take from that. Yeah, I mean and then it's really interesting. I mean, I know I find myself always sort of deconstructing certain things, even now. Even I don't know if you ever read Bruce Lee's book before. I think it was the golly, Lord, I hate it now because I forgot the title of it.
I've not read it, so if you can make up anything,
I'm gonna be mad now because I used to remember that. I knew the title and everything. But the biggest concept that I ever took from Bruce Lee's book was the act of deconstructing. He's really philosophical with his art, and so yeah, the biggest thing was learning how to absorb people's styles, absorb knowledge, wisdom, everything, and then you will get to a point to where you will have to deconstruct everything till you get to the essence, to the core of what you're trying to become. And that's something, honestly, I find myself doing even the more I do, research on my book, and I find new knowledge and wisdom, the more I allow that to sort of absorb in me, and then figure out ways of, okay, how can I deconstruct everything until I get to what I am actually trying to communicate, what I'm actually here for on this planet. I think in some form or fashion, I think everybody wants to find that answer. I think everybody's always seeking in some way. Sometimes things can, I really feel like sometimes things can disguise themselves to sort of get people out of the act of sort of finding out more about themselves, or finding new knowledge. But yeah, I think in essence, I think a lot of people are always trying to figure things out, find out who they are, realize that what they previously thought, 5 or 10 years ago could be completely wrong. And knowing that there's always, you can always find new knowledge. You can always find a new awareness about yourself, and about, who you are on this planet. I know you always, I've seen you start to frequent more, quick shout out to Humanity Showers. They do a lot of great stuff here in Oceanside, but I know you've started to come out there and talk to some of the individuals more. And I find myself, just being, just being in gratitude and being blessed to be able to, encountering those. So it's not to say, I definitely, hope a lot of those individuals, I hope they get a, foot up. But at the same time too, it shows me, what humanity, actually could be and what it is, and learning, really learning how to just be a good human being, being a good citizen, not only of just the United States, but being a good citizen of this planet, and being able to take care of everyone. Because
Yeah.
we definitely can't rise if everybody, if people are sort of down and, you got other people rising up, it's not going to help, our planet at all.
Yeah.
We all have to rise together. Um,
With that, on the humanity showers, do you mind just a quick point on that?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like I think that for creatives, or even people who are on the spiritual path, or even if we think of higher vibration or things, sometimes we don't want to expose ourselves to certain places and spaces out of maybe a subconscious fear or whatever. Or I've heard, I think it's kind of toxic, but you know, kind of a new age thought of like, well, I don't want to be around those people because they have a lower vibration. They're going to bring my vibration down. But you look at, again, Jesus, who was a fully realized being, and he was with sick people and homeless people all the time, because you become an environment within yourself. And now all of these things, you're able to bring light into these places instead of being so scarcity that, oh, these people are going to take my light away from me. And something happens in you whenever you expose yourself. Like I go to the showers, or we went out on the streets for over a year just giving socks away every Wednesday or whatever. And it's like I didn't document or post anything about that, because I think a lot of times for creatives too, because this is a creative brew, getting outside of your lane or your bubble. Like literally, like last week when I saw you there, I'm just like, I have been like by myself in my own like creative like tunnel vision for like a week, and I have lost touch with like flesh and blood humans. And I'm like, I just need to show up at the showers and just have some conversations with some people. And if you want to talk about real conversations,
Yeah,
these are people that don't have filters. You know
yeah,
what I mean? They're not, their ego's not there. They're not trying to get you to think that they're somebody. Like, it's the brass tacks humanity over there at the showers, or just walking around Oceanside. And so anyway, to that note, and to a point for creatives, like, man, like get out of your lane and out of your bubble and out of your comfortability, and embrace like just the real, sometimes harsh reality of what the human experience is like. And that just does something not only for yourself but for others. And again, it raises what you're talking about. A rising tide lifts all ships. That was the name of the co-working space that I met you from, right?
yeah.
Rising tide, it's about everyone together. And yeah, so you don't have to preserve anything within you or protect. You can be a actual beneficial presence to people in the world when you're confident about the light that's within you.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, you ever get a chance, anybody that's in the area, swing by Manny Showers, um, give some coffee, and have a conversation with one of those people, and I guarantee you, you will hear some stories. And
Yeah.
it's one of those where I know anytime that I talk to them, and I've created a rapport with a lot of them. I mean, I pretty much know most of them by name now. It's just one of those to where it seeing that and knowing that, you know, even at my capacity, being able to just help in some small way, um, that's the world to them. That's all they want. I mean, a lot of people that's homeless, or just maybe they're looking just to create a better life for themselves. They don't want people to ignore them. They don't want people to say, hey, look, I'm just invisible. You're just gonna walk past me like I'm expecting you to give me money or anything like that. I think they just want respect. They just want to be seen, and they just want to be heard. And it's definitely a ongoing issue, and that's something that's always, hopefully, it can be resolved in some form or fashion. But that's going to be an ongoing battle. It's probably an episode for another
Yeah.
time. But I know you mentioned a little bit, and this is something I love to sort of deep dive a little bit. And you talked briefly about energy and vibrations, and what could you, from your experience, what would you define that define that as? Because you hear a lot of people talking about it, and actually, it's starting to become more mainstream now, with that knowledge. But from your experience, how would you define, just vibrations or energy? What do you define that as?
Yeah, I think that everything, well, I don't think, I mean, science tells us everything's in vibration. Everything is frequency. It's all moving. It's all a happening. All of this is a happening, and it's all moving at particular vibrational frequencies. Um, and so whenever we're even talking about high vibe or low vibe or whatever, I think because it's become kind of mainstream, um, there needs to be greater education about what that actually is. Because when people say low vibe, they really just mean somebody who's like maybe having a bad day or being negative for a second. People would say high vibe, that just means that they're like in a good mood. And that's not really what vibrational is. Vibrational tones are, it does shift, it can shift quickly, but it's more so about the state of being that is deep within you that's being expressed. So to think that we're going to not have any negative emotion or be upset or frustrated or, you know, that's not being low vibe, that's being a human. The difference is that the core of your being, the reality of who you are beyond the ego, beyond the roles that you play, and beyond all of the things that you're trying to project into the world, becoming a higher vibrational person just means that you're looking at things, I would say, through not fear or desire. And desire is one with kind of an asterisk that we could make a footnote about, but I'll keep moving for time's sake, so I'll get distracted with that. But fear or desire is am I making my decisions? Am I living and moving and having my being? If I really get down to it, am I doing this because I'm fearful or scared or have a personal agenda, or am I truly orienting myself towards love, towards service, towards compassion, towards grace? And really, to get back to my pastoral Christian roots, is the fruit of the spirit. Like, am I orienting myself towards love, peace, patience, joy, kindness, gentleness, self-control? We forget that's a fruit of the spirit too. Like, probably forgetting some, but the point is vibration is a particular state that we exist at, not necessarily. It's a difference, I think, between like weather and climate, right? Like, climate is a different thing than weather. It's like a storm comes and passes, fine. Regardless, San Diego has a Mediterranean climate. Whether a storm comes or not, we're going to be at a Mediterranean climate because of our positioning. And understanding vibration is understanding your vibrational position and your expansion and your growth and your awakening. And so that's how you can move into that, by small choices each and every day that as a being raise your vibration, not just being around somebody who like spilt coffee on their pants and whatever, you know what I mean? Like, we don't have a proper understanding of that. So the way that I define that is your state of being, your inner being. Where is that? Love and service, or fear and desire?
Oh yeah, no, you great point. You brought up a great point on that, and that's something that, like I said, I'm always um, researching on, and I know I sort of talk about it in some form or fashion. But yeah, what you talked about as far as your definition of vibration, and I know that there's been all kinds of studies. People, like I said, there's people, all kinds of people out there now, and they've got vibrational scales, and as far as what going all the way up from, I guess, like ecstasy, joy, peace, going all the way down to envy or fear, where all those various scales. And I know just and I actually talked actually briefly about it earlier this morning, and talking about even meditating, and people were trying to, they had issues with meditating, and I'm an active meditator, and I tell my, and what I said was really talking about knowing that, okay, you've got a vibrational set point, and there's you can go either way during the course of the day. You can, what you talked about earlier, you could feel happy, 1 minute, and then heck, you spill your coffee or something happens, and then you drop down real quick. But I feel like you always sort of go back to that little state, that little steady state, um,
Hey, hey.
that you're normally at. So learning how to, you know, keep yourself on a certain level to where, whatever good or bad happens, that you still rise back up to that one specific vibrational state. And really the trick is learning how to practice it. And I think a lot of people, um, you know, trying to make the time to practice that intentionally and saying, whatever good or bad happens, this is something I tell myself every morning. Literally, when I get well, actually, first thing I tell myself when I get in the morning is thank you for a new day. And then after that, I ask God, the universe, like how do I need to show up today? Um, and not asking for anything else, like how do I need to show up? And really coming from that point of being a giver, of knowing, what, if I come from the belief that I've got all the talents, all the skills, everything that I need right now, what could I give that's going to, be beneficial for someone?
Yeah.
And I think that's something that I try to practice, and I don't get it right all the time. There's some days where I just get up and I'm just cranky for some reason. And then there's times where,
You're a
I tell
creative.
myself, it's gonna be a great day. And you said that. I mean, that's part of the human experience. That's part of saying, you know what, you can't have good without the experience of bad either.
Yeah,
You can't experience something great and not have knowledge of what the bad part of that is.
yeah,
Um, and I think that's just part of the sort of dualistic sort of nature of the human experience. I honestly, ideally, we want to be in oneness from a universal standpoint, but right now from that sort of dualistic standpoint, on Earth, you have to have knowledge of the shadow along with the light. And I think Christ
yeah.
Christ definitely knew that, and he was aware of it, and knew how to merge the two. And I
Yeah,
think from what talk about is knowing what those scales are, knowing that what is in actuality what vibration is, and knowing that, hey, you can go into an environment, be aware of it, but it's not going to, if you're really been practicing on it, it's not going to upset you.
that's
You
right.
should be at a point to where you're able to observe it and see it for what it is. um if we attach to it, I think that's when
That's
things start to drop, when we attach it, and we attach it to our story.
that.
So yeah, I mean and we can always, golly, there's so much stuff we can talk about with that. uh
Right. Yeah.
for a lot of people. And what actually got me down this path was, and I know I've told you before, but for audiences, I'm working on a sci-fi book. And yeah, I started deep diving and really getting into certain readings and knowledge, and sort of talking about vibration and energy and frequencies, and all the things that are actually that actually impact us that we don't even see. Even from a scientific standpoint, we only see a small percentage of visible light, and there's you know golly, there's a whole range of different frequencies that hit us on a daily basis, but we only see a small percentage of it. So yeah, you get into all that knowledge, and you start to absorb it, and it increases your awareness too, and knowing that um, you know there's which I really feel like there's so much more to to know, and there's things that are unseen that are probably around us all the time. You can call it, spirits or ghosts or, guardian angels, anything. I mean, all those things, I really feel like is, they're always around us. But what do you think about that?
Yeah, man. I mean, I went through a time where I think just sort of fed up with all of that, because I grew up in a charismatic environment, so everything is, pretty spiritual in that way, even though we didn't really talk about the theology or the philosophy of it all. It was very much, you want to keep clean, from all of that, and don't expose yourself, and don't give the devil a foothold or whatever it might be, right? And my wife too, she grew up going to our church, and her parents were Pentecostal before that. So it's very much, even to this day, there's like you don't want a spirit of fear, right? It's very like, there's this sort of lurking energy that's just waiting for the opportunity for you to have a thought and just hit you through the back door, right? Like, I don't think that anymore. I think that was definitely some archaic ways to get people to stay in line, and it worked. Fear, when you can't get people to love you, you just got to scare them, and that's what church and Christianity did for many years. Is the teachings of love within themselves weren't enough, and there was, buildings to be built, and emperors to have wealth, and so we needed to figure out a way to get money and extract money out of people. So let's scare them and tell them all these things. But as far as energy and even angels or anything of that, like, we vibrationally, we don't understand all that's coming around us all the time. And I've went through a time of being like, yeah, very rationalistic, whatever. But I had a really far out experience, my wife and I did, that was undeniable, that there is some level of dimension that's happening that we cannot see from this paradigm and perspective. I call this is like the fifth dimension, because it transcends time. Your three dimension, fourth dimensional time. And everybody right now, especially in a lot of the spiritual community, is talking about the 5D and the new earth, right? And I believe in that. But I don't know that we have had some of the wisdom and knowledge of how that actually manifests itself in our daily. But in that fifth dimensional space of goodness, of growth, and of transcending the time and space in the material universe, there's also things that could feel, from this point of view and perspective, dark or demonic or things. But I think that that's such a small percentage of things. I think a lot of it's what we read into it. But as far as energy, man, like, we, especially creatives, like, to come back to the original elements of your podcast here, is like, creatives are more sensitive to this anyways. We're more aware of, in spirit or energy, these are interchangeable words. These are synonyms. These are things that we can use to define it. And so it's like, man, like, I just get a good energy, I get a good vibe about you. It's like, oh, but that's a good spirit about that. Not that it's an actual, like, hidden, like, weird cloaked person, but it's a vibration. So I don't know if I'm answering your question quite right, but I do think that there is unseen elements that influence us. And I do think that it's small decisions and choices that help shape us on the meta. But I definitely don't think that somebody's like, invisibly hiding, trying to tempt me to, like, I don't know, like, eat the donut that I shouldn't eat, or whatever it might be, right? Like, yeah, I think it's a lot more deep than that, than just like, yeah, the spirit of whatever was trying to, like, keep me drinking or so. I don't know. Like, I don't know about all that, but yeah.
Yeah, that's always up for really deep deep discussion, because
That's
we
all
we
I
always.
know how to do, by the way. Sorry. So
No, no,
I
that's
don't
no,
live in
this
a
no, this
small
is fine.
town
I mean,
well.
this is what the show is about. Is
Yeah, yeah,
getting,
yeah.
getting very, different concepts, and getting new ideals, new topics, people like you that, that may be on the fringe of, Christianity or spirituality, and sort of developing their own sort of unique views and perspectives and twists on things. I mean, that's what this is what the show is about. So yeah, there's no wrong answer, in this
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
in this interview. um so we'll come back around. Right now, I mean, what things are inspiring you right now? What things, when you wake up in the morning, what things do you, from a creative standpoint, inspire you?
I have, I mean, you really caught me at a good time. And I think that there's like, I think there's divine timing for things, because it's interesting that we've known each other for about 2 or 3 years. We've always talked about doing this episode and we haven't, because I think it's the right timing for it. I've pressed more into my creative journey now more than ever. Um, doing a lot of the trying to get creative in terms of what a pastor could be or whatever for years, or what church could be. Um, I'm really not doing any of that anymore, and I am doing a lot more creative work at this point. Still doing a lot of things. So what I get excited about is a few different things. One, just to, I guess, transition. I'll get to more of the obvious creative stuff, but a good transition from what we were just talking about is making that shift from being a pastor to a spiritual director or a spiritual companion. I like the word companion a lot more. Spiritual director is just something that in the Catholic tradition has been around, since 300s, the Desert Fathers. But people would go to see a spiritual director. Companion's a lot better, because I think we're all walking along this path, and everybody is so unique, and so their stories are so like individualized to themselves, that we have these bigger themes, but each and every one of us are expressing those themes in very unique and nuanced ways. And I think what I've learned is through like some of my pastoral stuff is we try to just box people into things. And so I've been really loving the creative process of walking alongside of people and seeing their life, their patterns, their path, and learning tools. So like really orienting myself towards like human design, or even astrology, or the Enneagram, or different things like this, different modalities that are tools that help us uncover who we are, that I think are creative, to experience the full spiritual human experience. So what gets me out of bed in the morning is being a spiritual companion. I love that. I've been doing more content again. I did a podcast, which you joined me on before. Did a podcast for a long time under a different name. And it was Spiritual Nomad. And that's what I went by for many years. But for a long time, I felt like that was not that really didn't embody who I was. Because yes, I was feeling nomadic for a time through that deconstruction, a lot of wondering, a lot of curiosity, having doubts, more questions. But really over these past couple of years, I've entered into a deep state of knowing that I'll always be curious and I'll always ask questions. But it's really a deep knowing when your identity is like more in your awareness than just trying to plug into everything or everyone else. When you know who you are connected to the source, I don't feel nearly as nomadic as I did whenever I started that project. And so just understanding that I'm my own being, expressing myself and walking with people into wholeness, that's really been a lot of my journey. So I've started making some YouTube videos again, just sharing ideas like this, less regimented as I used to be before, more open, less focused on my timelines. And that's really brought me into diving more into my camera again, and understanding that like there are things that we tinker with, and we wonder like, man, like I wish I could do more of this or that. And it's like, you just need to do it. And 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 I think that's the big thing with creatives, is sometimes we get romantic about the ideas of things. And at least for me, I romanticize what it would be like to really be in your lane, in your groove, and in your creative self all the time. And it's like, no, like the roller coaster, the high and low, the all of it, the full embodied experience, and the skills that you want are there. It's just make like every day, like I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna shoot for an hour and just see what comes up, you know. And I'm gonna bring it back and throw it into Lightroom or Premiere or whatever, and just see if anything was good, you know. And if nothing's good, it's fine. I learned a few things about lighting. I learned a few things about what I need to do next time. And so, yeah, just really, really diving back into to some of that and capturing feelings and thought and emotion through images and pictures and yeah. So and then I have some clients that I run social media for and build websites for and things. So um, I love sharing their brand and getting their essence and really putting that out into the world too. It's a lot less pressure on myself to come up with things all the time. It's like, like I could just help you bring your thing into light, you know, and I can unplug from my stuff for a little bit that I'm frustrated with or whatever, you know. So yeah, that's what I'm excited about.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now, from your experience, why do you feel like it's so hard for people to get going? There's a lot of I know there's a lot of people with creative talents that dream about doing certain things. Why do
Yeah.
you? It could be photography, videography, writing, music, design, anything. Why do you feel like it's hard for people to get started?
For me, I think one of the key elements today is you're always faced with competition or the illusion of competition. We are addicted to our phones and social media, and we're always looking at other things. And I think it's, at least for me, it's paralyzing to see people steps ahead of you doing what you want to do. And I think, at least for me, it's spending less time in comparison and more times on things that give you joy. I think another reason that people don't get started either is they think about step 7 when they really need to be thinking about step 1. Um, for me, like I've been working on my book as well, and I've had a few different variations of it over the past couple of years, and I really feel like a few months ago, I'm like I've locked in on what it is and what the theme is and everything, and it's like okay, great, like I charted it out and I outlined it. And then it was like a week went by, you know, and it's like, okay, I need to go to the next step now. I did that step. But again, for a long time, it was hard because I was only thinking about writing a 300-page book on this. And I'm like, man, I just, every time I'd sit down to write, I'd be like, I can't get that much content. And so I'd put it away. And so I think it's just understanding what is the next step on the process for you and understanding like you don't need to know step 7, 5, or even 3. Like the old verse, right? The it's the lamp into your footsteps, into your path, and it's you only need to know the next 2 steps. You're not supposed to have the hallway lit up. And I think as creatives we get down on ourselves because we don't we're kind of forced to think like business people in a lot of ways, to begin with the end in mind, right? Have this very very foundational, like clear idea of what the end thing is that you're going to sell and make money on and monetize. And sometimes for creatives, it's like, yeah, like, I don't, you'll figure that out like when you get there. Like, you don't have a book to sell until you actually like sit down to write the book. And you don't really can't write a book until you outline it. And then, so it's like just taking it one step at a time. And I'm preaching to myself, and I'm finally to the point now where I'm able to start formatting it in a way that like I'm not even going to make a book in a traditional way. Like it's going to be very colorful and big font and small font and everything. And it's like I didn't know I was going to do that until I outlined it and wrote most of it. So I think that's what paralyzes people is comparison and then thinking about steps that are way too far down the line.
That is the truth. That's the truth on that. Um, so creative tips. What is a creative tip or tips for our audience?
Uh, for me, it's create what you want to create. Um, I think we are so obsessed now with social media that we're creating based on what might get likes or views or go viral or whatever. And every time that I've done that, I feel like there's a piece of me that I betray myself when trying to create in that way. Um, so the creative tip for me is, do not betray yourself at the expense of some illusion that you're going to gain fame by, doing it this way or that way that really isn't true to you. Again, it comes back down to knowing who you are and your true self, and your true self always knows. And your body and your heart wisdom will always show you what the right path is for you to begin to take the steps of creation. And you are a divine being that is co-creating at all times. And that co-creator wants you to be you, or else, the divine wouldn't have created you to be you. Like, the full expression and the gift of who you are is where the gold is, man. Can't do it for any other reason than that.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. That's awesome. Um, Words of wisdom. Before we sign off, those words is gonna resonate with people's hearts and spirits.
Yeah. Words of wisdom, man. I mean, even as you say that, you got to know who you are through the process. And again, sometimes you don't know who you are, but put yourself around people and places that can help fan into flame who you truly are, that aren't trying to use you or be in competition with you. Um, and man, like even you said, like I changed my handle on my creative to Brother Luke, because the truth is I wasn't the spiritual nomad. I'm not the spiritual nomad anymore. And I don't want to be too hierarchical and put myself some way farther down the road place. Like, I'm a brother. I'm someone who walks side by side with people. And I think that's the thing. The word of wisdom is that, um, man, be honest about where you're at and who you are, and not needing to be anything other than that. Uh, we don't need anybody else to try to become someone else. We need the full expression and the full range of individuals and who they are, and honest about where they're at, authentic about where they're at, and honestly transparent about where they're at in the process of creation, who they are. And we're just seeing the smoke and mirrors just go away. We're just not buying into the hype anymore, I think, as humans. And the best word of wisdom is, man, just be truly honest and be patient with yourself and your creative process, and right foot, left foot. It's the only way you walk anywhere, man. So don't go
Yeah.
too far fast.
Yeah, that's the
Steady.
truth. That's good. That's good. So before we get done, how can people reach out to you, get connected with your content, everything that you're doing online? What's the best way to reach out to you?
Yeah. I have my website, easy one, lukebricker.com. That has pretty much everywhere that you can find me. So pretty simple. And then, on YouTube, just youtube.com/lukebricker. I have, two Instagram accounts. One's personal, that I do more of my own stuff and posting more of like the video things. And then my other more spiritual side, which is Brother Luke, just brother with no vowels, .Luke. And so, yeah, trying to do more TikTok, but we'll see how that goes. I think every creator's trying to, especially millennial creator, man. We're like, okay, I guess we got to keep up. But yeah, pretty much my website has everywhere where you can find me, lukebricker.com. So nice and simple. Do videos, have some book stuff rolling out. I do spiritual companionship and social media management as well too. So
That's awesome. That's great. That's great. So for everybody listening today on this live recording, I hope you got a chance to meet Brother Luke and everything that he's got going on. A lot of his ideals, a lot of just his thoughts on spirituality and Christianity. It's an amazing individual. Like I said, I have the pleasure because he lives close to me. So I get the pleasure of seeing him all the time. But for everyone that may not have that luxury, you can connect with him on Instagram, through his YouTube, and check out a lot of his content, and his podcast too as well. You can check out all of his content. So quick shout out, couple of sponsors that I always give shout outs to for this episode, or actually for this show. First of all, Elevate Coffee Trading, that's based out of the Dallas, Texas area. Extracting hope with every drop of coffee. Been a great partner of mine. So quick shout out to them. Another sponsor is Tennessee Grappling Apparel, out of the Knoxville area. They actually do design a lot of merchandise and apparel for wrestlers and grapplers. So check them out at TennesseeGrapplingApparel.com. And then Next Level Inspiration. This is actually started from one of my former college wrestlers, and he's got an inspirational lifestyle brand. He's got merchandise, speaking engagements, wrestling camps, and he's got all kinds of things going on. I believe he's working on developing a daily journal too as well. So you can check him out. All this will be in the show notes too as well, if you want to get connected with any of those brands. So other than that, this has been another awesome episode. Oh, quick note too, almost forgot. You'll see this episode on Spotify, SoundCloud, and Apple Podcasts, as well as our radio partner, heliumradio.com, that's based out of the Florida, St. Petersburg area. So this episode will be available on radio very soon, but podcast version you can see on, this will be out in a couple of weeks on Spotify, SoundCloud, and Apple Podcasts. And then this video you'll be able to see on my YouTube page at Quantel Langford. If you want to support the show in any form or fashion, you can go to www.buymeacoffee.com/the Creative Brew. And then for the price of a cup of coffee, you can support this episode as well as all the other episodes, and help keep the show going. And, as we march on, so we're getting close to, I believe you're episode 159 or 160 now. So we're trucking along here, getting close to 200 here sooner or later. But like I said, Luke, definitely thank you for coming on, sharing your wisdom, sharing your insights. And hey, other than that, be creative, stay inspired.
My only coping mechanism was to get blunted, but it's a different day, beginning of a new era. I gotta make a change, I gotta do better. I write verses every time to keep the skill sharp. A rock shows